Hello, listeners of the Circuspreneur podcast. I'm your host, Shanae Stiletto, and today I am giving a very big thank you to the White House. We are on the eve of the inauguration, and so the White House will be switching hands. And so, for those that were maybe familiar or unfamiliar, the Circus Arts Guild of America, founded by myself, was able to bring the circus arts industry to the White House this last September for the first of its kind historic circus arts industry roundtable in conversation with the Department of Labor and presented by the Department of Labor. And so I'm so thankful as as we go into this, this next period in reflecting on the benefits and the spotlight and the highlighting that the Biden Harris administration was willing to do for the circus arts industry, because we definitely are an industry and they treated us as such. And there was so much work that had to be done to get us to the White House this past September. I really can't go into enough detail about how challenging it was and how many rooms I was in and how many folks put their efforts behind it and into it. The invited guests from the circus arts industry and outside of the circus arts industry that really wanted to support this roundtable. And I'm still so grateful for those, individuals that, really stayed with it and made sure that this happened, because it wouldn't have been able to happen without them either. The event, we were working on another event just up until the inauguration, just to let folks know, there was supposed to be a series for the circus arts industry. And due to the White House changing hands, we ran out of time in presenting the next event for the circus arts industry, which is unfortunate. However, I'm still again grateful that the administration, was willing to invest in our industry and give us a series of events. And because there are so many moving parts and, things are, very, they're booked so much in advance, and trying to get things to come together and scheduling and things like that. It's a very real thing. And but again, very grateful that even up until the inauguration, we've been working and trying to bring another event to the White House that was going to be different than the roundtable. And so trying to bring in, different and unique incarnations of the circus arts industry and representation. And so, they really wanted to give as much diverse and inclusive representation as possible, and we couldn't fit everybody into the first industry roundtable. And that happens. Everybody knows events don't turn out exactly the way that they were planned. They don't have the people, all of the people that were maybe essentially supposed to be there. They can't accommodate all the people that were supposed to be involved. And that is definitely what happened with the first roundtable, even though it was a marvelous success. And we were very fortunate to have representatives from OSHA, from the US Center for Safe Sport, from Actors Equity, from the Musical Artists Guild of America, from Circus Meets Medicine, a long-term representative from Cirque du Soleil was there. Pavel Kotov, who is the face of Cirque du Soleil, no matter where he goes in his life and what he does. And I'm so grateful for their support in being there, because it was marvelous. And then we rounded out, obviously, the roundtable with various representatives from the White House staff, Department of Labor, as I said before, and other members of the White House Office of Public Engagement, and those that represents the entertainment and arts and culture. And also to a shout out to the National Endowment for the Arts, who was also there to join our Circus Arts Industry Roundtable, as obtaining circus arts recognition by the National Endowment for the Arts with its own individual category was one of the main themes of the Circus Arts Industry Roundtable, and kind of how that would serve as an umbrella for all of the other amazing initiatives that could, turn into more expansive legislation and policy for the circus arts industry, and more rights and more access to power and more access to funds for the circus arts industry. So again, we were so grateful that all of, these representatives came and, provided their perspectives and their support. We looked at the past of the circus, how it's been, how it is right now, and then what it could look like in the future, which was a really powerful, I think, conversation to have, especially in rooms that we're not normally and typically in, nor normally and typically invited into. And so I knocked on so many doors to have that happen. And like I said, I definitely didn't do it alone. And the support that I had throughout that was phenomenal, in terms of harnessing everyone's energy and perspectives. Um, I also want to give a big shout out to AGVA NY, who was also supposed to be at that roundtable, but due to scheduling conflicts with union negotiations, wasn't able to attend the roundtable. And so, again, just a perspective of things that happen when we pick a date, and folks are very busy and have so much on their plate in representing various parts of the industry. So again, beautiful thank you to them. And while I'm speaking about New York, a really big shout out to the Models Alliance, which is a phenomenal effort that just got legislation passed in New York and signed off by the governor, called the Fashion Workers Act. I believe it's the Fashion Workers Act, and forgive me if I'm misrepresenting that, but they we were working with the same White House staff, and they, for those that want to look towards a policy, that is representative of something that we could do for the circus arts, specifically in Nevada, that is a brilliant blueprint of what we could achieve through efforts of advocacy and lobbying on our behalf, of ourselves. And, we've been working with lawmakers locally and nationwide, for the past, few years here, and, in setting that standard and that blueprint for them to give them a visual. So the Fashion Workers Act, I mean, it's a phenomenal achievement. And just to give you a little bit of background, I won't go too much into it. I don't want to misspeak, but obviously I've been very attuned to what they've been able to do. But the majority of fashion workers and models are independent contractors, and so they are in a very similar category to entertainers, performance artists, and gig workers, and circus artists and Cirque artists. That many, are not employees on a regular basis, if ever. And so what they did was basically get this act that ensures those protections that you would probably have under union rights and union status. So they got the bill passed so that, they technically couldn't organize, in the same ways that employees could, even though they're not fully limited to do that, because there's so many different ways that you can organize if you are not an employee of a company. There's a video out there somewhere of me discussing that on the Circuspreneur podcast, and I talk about it all the time. So for folks that, have so much perspective on unionizing and organizing and things like that, I speak in depthly all the time about how there's so many different unique ways to organize, right? And to gain union rights. And this is a really, big one, for listeners out there, of what could be achieved through policy and legislation if you're not, for example, able to go through the traditional route. And, I would like to echo as well is that, whatever situation you're in, you should always check with your local, labor board to ask them about your situation and what your actual rights are, because so many of the situations that you could be in terms of employment are very fluid. So it's very important to ask folks that know before you jump to conclusions about what your rights are, because you may have way more rights than you think that you have access to. So again, rounding it back to the gratitude for the White House, for the administration, I was so honored the other year to be invited to meet Vice President Harris directly. And that was an amazing, show of support for my work as an advocate, as a survivor of USA Gymnastics, or folks out there that aren't familiar with, what started my advocacy years ago and how I got so invested in legislation and policy, and how that, transformed into the advocacy work that I've been doing on behalf of the circus industry, which I love and which means so much to me because it's been my entire career, my entire life after, and even while I was competing as an acrobatic gymnast for USA Gymnastics. So building those connections and understanding how government works, it was a great education. Is something that informs me now. But meeting again the vice president and then, having that introduction into, the administration and, kind of being ushered in and invited in, and then being able to bring up those conversations and topics and be like, I'm the one in the room representing Circus Arts alongside folks that were representing all sorts of industries, and, making it legitimatizing our industry as best as I could and as best as I can. Um, and knowing that, the White House really wanted to amplify the need for the circus arts industry to have policy and legislation, which again is a very profound thing and something that I really want the industry to remember that over the next, 4 years, as we, there will be an entirely new administration, and none of us know really what's going to happen, or kind of what's at stake, and what's going to be a part of that administration's particular makeup. We were fortunate that this administration was so open to so many different environments of labor and workers' rights. And of unique niche industries, and so again, they created a really incredible space for an industry like us to come in and be represented, and to also explore what our options are and what our industry could look like. Beyond where it has been and where it is now, and again, straight into the future, because I have so many ideas, and I know, I'm around a lot of folks that are, so brilliant and have such perspective on our circus arts industry, and have so many ideas. And I think that, again, in going to the White House and getting this type of support, we got to see that it is a reality, that these are spaces that are for us. We have to just continue to establish that dialogue and work with the systems that are there, and then also to creating new systems, because again, prior to the Fashion Workers Act, I mean, no one believed that they could get policy passed for the modeling industry. Whoever, if you've listened a little, or know a bit about the fashion industry and the modeling industry, I mean, and so I have to say as well, the folks that I've been speaking to in DC, and they put this, and this is no disrespect to the modeling industry, but they said if they can get policy passed, if they can get more rights, we would think that folks that are risking their lives and doing as much magnificent work as you all do, that you use your bodies and you do so many years of specialized work and hard labor. They said, we imagine that you would have that right too, and that privilege and that access. So I think that it's an important step for us to remember that. I could provide so much insight, but I won't go too long in this special reflection on the Circus Arts Industry Roundtable that was presented by the White House and by the Biden Harris administration, and something to honor as we, as they usher in the next administration, and as there is a whole new, set of folks, in various positions of government, and all of us seeing where do we go from here in terms of our advocacy, and what does that look like. For all of us that are advocates in so many different ways, and I just want to remind everyone that it's important for us to continue to stay engaged, and to work together, and to find different ways to come together. And that's been a really important lesson that I've learned in my own advocacy, in terms of how you come together from all walks of life in government and in DC, and seeing how policy has been passed, because I've been a part of policies getting passed and rewriting policies and amending policies, and you really understand the word, I guess, is working across the aisle. And we have so many folks from so many different backgrounds that are very in tune with our policy positions and what we're trying to do with the circus arts industry. So to close out this episode, we do have an event coming up, the Circus Arts Guild of America, in partnership with the Nevada Labor Commissioner's Office, with special guest Chris Smalls, who is the founder of the Amazon Labor Union. He will be here next Thursday, January 23rd, 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. PST. It's an in-person event. Please go to the Eventbrite link that I have in the notes of this episode to sign up and RSVP. It's a free event, everyone, so don't worry, you don't have to buy a ticket. They are coming out and they are doing this for us for free to have engagement to the local entertainment and circus and Cirque industries here in Las Vegas. And so whatever level of representation that you see yourself as, burlesque dancer, any of those things, magicians, jugglers, this is for all of you. And so invite your friends, come out for any level that you can. If you can't stay for the whole time, that's okay too. And come out and enjoy our town hall / workshop. It'll be a Q&A. You get to interact with them, ask them questions. They're also going to do miniature presentations as well to explain certain different laws and rules of employment and different levels of employment as well. So thank you again all for coming out. I hope to see you next week in person. It's also going to be live streamed, but RSVPing to be there in person is strongly encouraged. I love to meet everyone. Come meet Chris Smalls. He's amazing. He's a legend. He was just at the White House too with President Biden on a special invitation. So he's quite phenomenal. And I think you'll very much enjoy listening to him speak and be very inspired by him.